So, what if the most powerful government on Earth wasn't located in a capital city, but was actually running on a server somewhere in Denver? Well, today we're going to break down this really fascinating online thesis that makes that exact claim that a single tech company has pulled off a silent coup and has become the true seat of global power. Right off the bat, the source material does not pull any punches. It opens with this startling idea. The whole concept here is that a third world war has already happened, not with soldiers and bombs, but with data and algorithms. It was a silent, digital conflict that, according to this argument, has already been won. Okay, so just to be super clear, our goal here isn't to prove this theory, and it's not to disprove it either. We're simply unpacking the argument just as the source presents it. That way, you can see the evidence it uses to build its pretty incredible case. So, let's dive in. So, the first pillar of this entire argument is the silent coup itself. The idea is that real, effective power has just quietly slipped away from the institutions we're used to, like governments, and into the hands of a totally new kind of entity. And this is where the source makes its most stunning claim that the true command and control for the US military and for key Western industries is no longer in Washington, D.C. Instead, it argues, that power is now wielded by a single algorithm from a company called Palantir. I mean, that's a huge claim, right? So how in the world does the source even begin to back that up? Well, its first piece of evidence focuses on how the modern battlefield itself has completely changed. The source basically says to forget about conventional armies. Victory in today's world, it claims, is decided by data and AI. We're talking about systems that can spot a target before a soldier is ever deployed, or choke off a supply line before a truck even starts its engine. And to really frame this new global arms race, the source introduces this term, sovereign AI. Now, this isn't just about having some cool new tech, it's about a nation having its very own strategic AI, totally independent of any rival power. The argument is that Palantir has basically become the go-to provider of this critical infrastructure for the entire West. This quote, this really gets to the heart of how the source sees things. It frames the company not just as a piece of software, but as an essential strategic tool, a digital net that lets you see what your opponent is going to do next. So, moving on from military theory, the argument then pivots hard into the numbers, looking at the financial evidence for the company's growing influence in, well, pretty much everything, both government and the private sector. The first big number the source throws out there is a projected revenue growth of 38% for 2026. Now, that's not just growth. It's presented as proof of exponential expansion. It's a sign that this company is embedding itself into the world's most critical systems at a faster and faster rate. And check this out. This chart shows where that growth is actually coming from. I mean, sure, it was founded on government work, but the source points out that almost half of its revenue, that huge 45% slice, is now coming from commercial clients. We're talking hospitals, banks, factories. This shows a massive strategic pivot right into the core of the private economy. The source then uses this really powerful metaphor to explain what it calls the lock-in effect. The argument is simple. Once an organization, whether it's a military branch or a hospital, builds this system into its core operations, it becomes so essential that it's pretty much impossible to ever take it out. All right, so this deep integration and this insane growth, it all leads to a really important question, one that the source tackles head on. Is the company's sky-high stock valuation even remotely justified? And the script is very upfront about the main criticism you hear from skeptics, that its price-to-earnings ratio is incredibly high, which is usually a major red flag that a stock is just dangerously overpriced. But then, the source immediately flips the script. It says, look, you're looking at it all wrong. It argues that focusing on that PE ratio of 75 is a mistake. Instead, it tells us to look at a completely different metric, the PEG ratio, which it calculates to be about 1.8. And here's why that shift is so important. Unlike the PE ratio, the PEG ratio actually takes the company's massive growth into account. And by using that metric, the source argues the company isn't expensive at all. In fact, it calls the stock a steal because you're buying into its future expansion at what it claims is a really fair price. Okay, so for the final piece of the puzzle, the source brings all these different threads, the military, the commercial, the financial, all of it together to present its ultimate vision for this company's role in the world. And this is really the punchline of its whole financial argument. It completely reframes the investment. The idea is you're not just buying shares in some software company. According to this view, you are buying a piece of what it calls essential national security infrastructure, literally, the foundational operating system for Western nations. The script leaves us with this really powerful image. It suggests that the most potent weapon today isn't some gadget or a gun, it's a dashboard. The real power belongs to the analyst who can see the data, who can understand the patterns, and who can know an opponent's thoughts before they're even fully formed. And all of this brings us to the central, kind of unsettling question at the very heart of this entire narrative. I mean, if the ability to predict, the ability to know, becomes the ultimate form of power, and all of that power is concentrated inside a single company's black box, what does that mean for things like accountability, for democracy? And you have to wonder, who is truly in control?